Sometimes a single moment of kindness can change everything, Sarah whispered to herself as she dashed through the pounding rain, clutching her worn umbrella and balancing a bag of groceries for her 2 children. The city streets shimmered with reflections of neon signs and wet asphalt, puddles splashing under each hurried step, and she noticed an elderly man struggling to gather his scattered papers by the curb, his coat soaked and hat dripping, looking confused and vulnerable. Without hesitation, Sarah approached, offering a gentle smile and a hand to steady him as she helped collect his important documents, feeling the weight of her own tiredness fade in comparison to the immediate need before her. She noticed the fine quality of his coat, the faint scent of expensive cologne mingling with the rain. But she pushed any curiosity aside, focusing entirely on making sure he was safe and warm under her small umbrella, talking to him in a calm, soothing voice while keeping an eye out for oncoming cars and the slippery puddles that could easily cause a fall. Once the papers were secure, she offered to escort him to a nearby cafe to dry off, insisting she could manage the few extra minutes it would take. Even though she was already late to pick up her children from school, as they walked, the man told her small anecdotes of his younger days, the corners of his eyes crinkling with memories, and Sarah listened attentively, nodding and laughing when appropriate, feeling a sense of warmth despite the cold rain dripping through her jacket, realizing that these moments of human connection, though fleeting, held a profound value that outweighed her own minor inconveniences. Upon reaching the cafe, Sarah insisted he take a seat and ordered him a hot coffee, refusing any payment, knowing that her own budget was tight, but feeling that some things, like kindness and compassion, were priceless and must be shared whenever possible. As she handed him the cup, their fingers brushed lightly, a spark of understanding passing silently between them, and she felt a rare moment of fulfillment, a reminder that even small acts could have unforeseen impacts on others' lives. She glanced at the clock, calculating the time she had left before needing to fetch her children, and the man smiled warmly, thanking her with genuine gratitude, his eyes reflecting a depth of appreciation that went beyond words. And as she turned to leave, the rain beginning to ease slightly, she felt a subtle shift in her own perspective, understanding that in a world often rushed and indifferent, these deliberate acts of care could ripple outward in ways she could not yet imagine, setting the stage for a chain of events that might alter her life in ways she had never expected. Sarah stepped back into the drizzle, brushing rain from her hair, feeling the lingering warmth from helping the elderly man. Her mind raced with thoughts of the unexpected encounter and the sense of connection that had briefly bridged the gap between 2 strangers, and she knew that the rest of her day would carry the weight of that experience as she hurried toward the bus stop to pick up her children, pulling her coat tighter against the damp chill. As she walked, she replayed the man's words. In her mind, snippets of stories about his youth, his travels, and the lessons he had learned over the years, and though brief, each tale seemed to illuminate a perspective she had rarely considered, making her reflect on her own life, choices, and the small acts that could ripple outward beyond her immediate circle. Upon reaching the bus, she spotted her children waiting, umbrellas clutched and shoes splashing in puddles. Their faces brightened with smiles as they recognized her, and she felt a comforting relief in the familiar chaos of family life, a grounding contrast to the strange yet profound encounter she had just experienced. While walking them home, she recounted fragments of the morning's events, carefully framing them in terms of kindness, empathy, and the importance of helping others whenever possible. And her children listened intently, their eyes wide with curiosity and admiration, absorbing the subtle lesson of generosity she had modeled in real time. At home, she placed wet coats on hangers, brewed a warm pot of tea, and checked the mail, pausing momentarily as a neatly folded envelope caught her attention. Marked with elegant handwriting and a return address that she did not recognize, curiosity piqued, her hands trembling slightly as she opened it to find a handwritten note of thanks from the elderly man, expressing sincere gratitude for her selfless assistance and hinting at a small gift enclosed as a token of appreciation, leaving Sarah astonished and contemplative, realizing that the simple choice to help someone could create a chain of unexpected responses and deepen her sense of interconnectedness. The note prompted her to consider the broader implications of compassion in her community, how acts of care, even ones unnoticed by the larger world, could resonate deeply with individuals whose lives intersect briefly with hers, and she felt a renewed motivation to continue weaving these threads of humanity into her daily routine. Recognizing the quiet power of intentional empathy, and by the time dinner was ready, Sarah's thoughts remained partly with the man, the note, and the possibilities it represented, the ordinary moments of the day now imbued with a sense of purpose and a tangible reminder that even small gestures could hold transformative potential. That evening, after the children had gone to bed and the apartment had finally grown quiet, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with the handwritten note resting beside a warm cup of tea, reading it again more carefully than before. The words were simple, yet there was something unusual about them, a sincerity that felt increasingly rare in a world where most people seemed too busy to notice one another. And as she studied the elegant handwriting, she noticed a small detail she had overlooked. Earlier, a brief sentence near the bottom thanking her not only for her assistance, but also for reminding him that genuine kindness still existed. The statement lingered in her thoughts long after she folded the letter and placed it safely inside a drawer, and when she finally went to sleep. She carried with her a quiet sense of satisfaction that had little to do with recognition and everything to do with knowing she had helped someone who needed it. The next morning began like any other, with school lunches to prepare, backpacks to organize, and a race against the clock to get everyone out the door on time. Yet Sarah found herself smiling more easily than usual, and even Ethan noticed the difference, asking whether something good had happened, causing her to laugh softly before telling him that sometimes helping another person could brighten your own day as well. After dropping the children at school, she headed to work at the neighborhood bookstore where she managed inventory and assisted customers, a job she appreciated despite the modest pay because it allowed her to interact with people and share her love of reading. And throughout the morning, she helped customers find novels, organize displays, and answer questions, all while occasionally thinking about the mysterious older gentleman she had met in the rain. Shortly after noon, an unexpected visitor entered the store, a sharply dressed woman carrying a leather portfolio and an expression of calm professionalism, and after briefly looking around, she approached the counter and politely asked whether Sarah Mitchell was available. Surprised, Sarah introduced herself, and the woman handed her a sealed envelope bearing an embossed crest she did not recognize, explaining only that she had been asked to deliver it personally. Curiosity mixed with uncertainty as Sarah carefully opened the envelope and discovered an invitation to attend a luncheon the following afternoon at one of the city's most respected charitable foundations, along with a handwritten message encouraging her to come as a guest of honor. Confused by the invitation and unable to imagine why she would be included in such an event, Sarah reread the message several times, wondering whether there had been some mistake, but the woman assured her that everything was intentional before politely departing. For the remainder of the day, Sarah struggled to focus completely on her work, her thoughts returning repeatedly to the invitation and the unanswered questions surrounding it. And that evening she discussed the situation with her children over dinner, prompting Ethan to suggest that perhaps she had won an award while Lily excitedly declared that maybe she was secretly famous, causing all three of them to laugh together. Despite the humor, Sarah remained genuinely puzzled. Yet deep down she sensed that the invitation somehow connected to the elderly man from the rainy afternoon, and as she prepared for bed later that night, carefully placing the invitation beside the handwritten note, she could not shake the feeling that she was standing at the beginning of something far larger than she yet understood. The following afternoon, Sarah arrived at the charitable foundation feeling both nervous and curious, her simple navy dress carefully pressed and her hair neatly arranged, wanting to make a respectful impression despite having no idea why she had been invited. The building itself was impressive, with tall windows, polished stone floors, and photographs highlighting decades of community projects, and as she stepped inside, she was greeted warmly by staff members who seemed to be expecting her arrival, further deepening the mystery surrounding the event. After checking in, she was escorted to a large banquet room where community leaders, educators, nonprofit directors, and local business owners were gathering for lunch, and Sarah immediately felt out of place among so many accomplished individuals. Wondering whether some administrative mistake had placed her name on the guest list, she considered quietly leaving more than once, but but each time she remembered the handwritten note and the invitation, convincing herself to stay and see what would happen. As the luncheon began, several speakers shared stories about volunteerism, compassion, and the importance of investing in local communities. Themes that resonated deeply with Sarah because they reflected values she tried to teach Ethan and Lily every day. She listened attentively while enjoying a modest meal, gradually relaxing as the atmosphere proved far more welcoming than intimidating. And just when she began to settle into her seat, the Master of Ceremonies announced a special guest whose lifelong contributions had helped shape many of the Foundation's programs. Moments later, Sarah felt her heart skip when she saw the elderly man from the rainy afternoon walk confidently onto the stage, greeted by warm applause from everyone in the room. For several seconds, she simply stared in disbelief, struggling to reconcile the humble man she had helped in the storm with the respected figure now standing before hundreds of guests. The mystery deepened as the audience listened attentively to his introduction, which described decades of philanthropy, business leadership, and community service, revealing that his name was William Carter and that he had dedicated much of his life to supporting educational and charitable initiatives throughout the state. Suddenly, the elegant handwriting, the mysterious invitation, and the unusual attention she had received all began to make sense. William smiled as he addressed the audience, speaking about the importance of character and how true generosity often appeared in unexpected places. And although he never mentioned Sarah by name, she could not shake the feeling that his words were somehow connected to their encounter. He shared stories of ordinary people performing extraordinary acts of kindness without seeking recognition, emphasizing that communities became stronger when individuals chose compassion over convenience. And Sarah felt herself becoming emotional as she listened because the message reflected exactly what had happened between them during the storm. After the presentation concluded, guests mingled throughout the room, discussing projects and exchanging ideas, and before long William approached Sarah personally, greeting her with the same warm smile she remembered from the cafe. He thanked her again for her help and introduced her to several Foundation leaders, speaking highly of her kindness and character in a way that left her both humbled and surprised. As the conversations continued, Sarah realized that this luncheon was not simply about honoring past achievements, but about connecting people who genuinely wanted to improve the lives of others. And by the time the afternoon ended, she walked out of the building carrying more than just memories of an unusual day. She carried a growing sense that the rainy encounter had opened a door to opportunities and relationships she never expected, while William, watching her leave from the entrance hall, quietly smiled, knowing that the most important part of this story had not even begun yet. The following morning, Sarah awoke feeling a mixture of anticipation and apprehension, the memory of the luncheon still vivid in her mind. And as she prepared breakfast for Ethan and Lily, she found herself reflecting on the conversation with William and the way he had observed her kindness without expectation of reward. She wondered why fate had chosen that rainy afternoon to connect them and felt a curious sense that her simple act had set something in motion far beyond her understanding. After getting the children ready for school, she stepped outside and noticed her small front yard bathed in the soft light of early morning, dew glistening on the grass. And as she walked to the car, she spotted a black luxury sedan parked unobtrusively across the street. A sense of recognition washing over her as she realized William might still be nearby, a silent witness to her everyday life. She tried to focus on her errands, visiting the local grocery store and handling mundane tasks with a heightened awareness, imagining William observing quietly from a distance, which brought a mixture of amusement and nervousness to her morning routine. By mid-morning, she received a phone call from an unfamiliar number, and when she answered, a warm, familiar voice introduced himself as William, explaining that he wanted to invite her and her children to visit the Foundation headquarters later in the week to see firsthand the impact of charitable projects she had supported through small acts of kindness in her community. Sarah felt a wave of gratitude and disbelief, wondering how her quiet contributions had captured the attention of someone so influential, and she accepted the invitation, her mind racing with questions about what the visit might entail and how it could affect her family's life. That afternoon, she returned home to find William's assistant delivering a small, elegantly wrapped package with a note expressing appreciation for her honesty and compassion. The gesture both surprising and touching, reinforcing the sense that her actions, though modest, had resonance far beyond what she could have imagined. As she opened the package, she discovered a selection of books on philanthropy, leadership, and community service, along with a personal letter encouraging her to continue nurturing the values of integrity and empathy in her children. A tangible reminder that small acts could ripple outward in profound ways. Later, as the sun began to lower toward the horizon, casting golden light across the neighborhood, Sarah sat on the porch with Ethan and Lily, reading the letter aloud and discussing what it meant to help others without expectation. And for the first time, she felt a deeper connection to the broader community, a sense that her life, though ordinary in many ways, intersected with forces of kindness and generosity that could change the world in small, meaningful steps. By evening, she reflected on the extraordinary series of events set in motion by her simple act in the rain, realizing that the path ahead might hold opportunities for service, growth, and unexpected friendship, and she drifted to sleep with a hopeful heart, understanding that the journey sparked that day had only just begun, and that the quiet power of honesty and compassion could indeed open doors to unimaginable experiences. The next morning, Sarah awoke with a sense of anticipation, sunlight filtering softly through her kitchen window as she prepared breakfast for Ethan and Lily, reflecting on the previous day's extraordinary encounter with William and feeling a mix of excitement and nervous curiosity about what might unfold next. After getting the children ready, she decided to walk them to the nearby park before school, the crisp air invigorating as they chatted and laughed along the familiar paths, each small interaction heightening her awareness of the subtle ways kindness could shape a day. Midway through their walk, her phone rang, displaying William's name, and when she answered, he spoke with warm familiarity, explaining that he wished to personally thank her for her integrity and to invite her to a small luncheon at his office later that week, emphasizing that he wanted her to see the positive outcomes of her honesty, a gesture that left her both honored and slightly overwhelmed by the thought of stepping into such a world. After the call, Sarah guided her children back home, their conversation filled with imagination and wonder about the possibilities that awaited them, and she found herself thinking about the journey of small acts leading to unexpected recognition, marveling at how a single choice to return a lost wallet had begun to ripple outward in ways she could not have anticipated. Later, while organizing her household tasks, a car pulled up quietly in front of her home, and she noticed a discreetly familiar presence, William's assistant delivering a carefully wrapped package containing a handwritten note and a selection of books on leadership, community service, and ethical decision-making, a tangible acknowledgement of her values and a reminder that integrity was recognized and valued beyond immediate circumstances. Throughout the afternoon, Sarah shared the contents with Ethan and Lily, reading aloud sections from the books and discussing the importance of honesty and empathy, cultivating a quiet lesson that resonated deeply with her children, reinforcing the family's shared understanding that small, conscientious actions could create significant impact over time. As evening approached, she reflected on the unfolding events while preparing dinner, her thoughts circling the extraordinary sequence set in motion by her simple act, considering the delicate balance between ordinary daily life and the larger influences of generosity and recognition, and feeling a profound sense of hope that these experiences could open doors to meaningful opportunities and friendships, nurturing a belief that the consequences of living with integrity could extend far beyond immediate surroundings. Before bed, she stepped outside briefly to enjoy the calm night air, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and quiet anticipation for the week ahead, understanding that the unfolding journey was both personal and shared, a testament to the enduring power of honesty, empathy, and the quiet courage to do the right thing, a foundation upon which unexpected connections and lasting experiences could be built. And as she closed the door behind her, a gentle peace settled over her, knowing that life's smallest choices often carried the potential to transform not just her world, but the broader community around her. The following morning, Sarah awoke with a mixture of anticipation and nervous excitement, The memory of William's thoughtful package still fresh in her mind as sunlight streamed gently through her kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the breakfast table where Ethan and Lily were eagerly helping her prepare pancakes and fresh fruit. As she poured coffee into mugs, her thoughts wandered to the unusual events that had unfolded since returning the lost wallet, and she marveled at how a single act of honesty could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she had never imagined. After breakfast, she helped the children get ready for school, their chatter filling the air with laughter and curiosity, and she noticed that even the simplest routine felt infused with a sense of possibility, as if the world itself had shifted subtly toward kindness and opportunity. Stepping outside to walk the kids to the school bus, she felt a cool breeze that carried the scent of spring rain, and her mind replayed William's words from the phone call, emphasizing the importance of integrity and the unexpected rewards of selfless actions, a message that resonated deeply as she guided Ethan and Lily down familiar streets, observing neighbors and friends and reflecting on the quiet ways every day. Gestures could create lasting impact. Upon returning home, she focused on household tasks while thinking ahead to the luncheon invitation from William, imagining how it might provide not only a chance to express gratitude in person, but also an opportunity to glimpse the broader world of business, philanthropy, and community engagement. And she realized that this experience was teaching her a valuable lesson in courage, humility, and the importance of embracing unexpected encounters. As mid-morning approached, a soft knock at the door revealed William himself, smiling warmly and carrying a small bouquet of flowers alongside a neatly wrapped notebook, a gesture of personal thanks that left Sarah momentarily speechless and filled with gratitude. And they shared a brief conversation about values, ethics, and the power of small acts to influence larger outcomes. Sarah feeling both honored and inspired by his genuine attention and thoughtfulness. Later in the afternoon, she shared the details with Ethan and Lily, explaining in simple terms the meaning of honesty, responsibility, and community care, and together they reflected on ways to practice kindness in their own lives. The children eager to help in small ways, reinforcing Sarah's belief that ethical behavior and compassion could grow organically within a household and radiate outward to touch others. As the day drew to a close, Sarah prepared dinner with a quiet contentment, her heart full of reflection on the extraordinary events set in motion by her single choice to return the wallet, understanding that life often presented moments of decision where character and integrity defined outcomes far beyond immediate perception. And as she tucked Ethan and Lily into bed, she felt a deep sense of purpose, ready to embrace the evolving journey ahead with mindfulness, hope, and the knowledge that simple, thoughtful actions could transform lives in remarkable ways. Several days later, the luncheon William had mentioned finally arrived, and Sarah found herself standing outside the headquarters of the Carter Community Foundation, taking a deep breath before stepping through the glass entrance doors. Although she had met William several times since the rainy afternoon, she still felt slightly overwhelmed by the realization that one of the city's most respected philanthropists had taken such a genuine interest in her life and values. And as she entered the building, she was greeted warmly by staff members who seemed to know exactly who she was, making her feel unexpectedly welcome rather than intimidated. William met her in the lobby with his familiar smile and invited her to spend the afternoon learning about the foundation's work, and together they toured educational centers, scholarship programs, community food initiatives, and mentorship projects that supported hundreds of local families, allowing Sarah to witness firsthand how thoughtful leadership and generosity could create meaningful change on a large scale. Throughout the tour, she asked questions about the programs and listened carefully to the stories of volunteers and community members whose lives had improved because someone had cared enough to invest in them. And the experience left a deep impression on her because it reflected many of the same values she tried to practice in her own life, only on a much broader level. During a meeting with several foundation directors, William surprised her by sharing examples of community service projects she had participated in over the years, explaining that he had quietly learned how often she volunteered at school events, helped neighbors during difficult times, and supported local causes without seeking recognition. And Sarah felt both embarrassed and humbled hearing those stories spoken aloud because she had never considered any of those actions remarkable. William gently explained that true character was revealed not during grand public moments, but through consistent choices made when nobody was watching. And his words stayed with her long after the meeting ended because they reminded her that kindness often carried more influence than people realized. Later that afternoon, they visited a youth education center funded by the foundation, where Sarah met students whose lives had been transformed through scholarships, tutoring, and mentorship opportunities. And she felt inspired watching young people gain confidence and pursue dreams that once seemed impossible. As she listened to their stories, an idea began forming in her mind, and she shared with William her desire to become more involved in community outreach, helping connect struggling families with educational resources and support systems. And William immediately encouraged the idea, recognizing both her passion and her natural ability to connect with people. Before the day ended, he introduced her to several program directors who expressed interest in collaborating with her on future projects, creating opportunities Sarah had never imagined for herself only weeks earlier. As she drove home that evening, the city lights reflecting across the windshield, she felt a powerful mixture of gratitude, hope, and responsibility. Understanding that the rainy afternoon had led her not only to an unexpected friendship, but also to a larger purpose, one that extended beyond her own circumstances and into the lives of others. When she arrived home and shared the day's experiences with Ethan and Lily, their excitement filled the room, and as she listened to their enthusiastic questions, Sarah realized that the greatest gift she had received was not recognition or opportunity, but a renewed belief that ordinary people could create extraordinary change simply by choosing kindness whenever the chance appeared. Several weeks later, Sarah stood backstage at a large community celebration organized by the Carter Community Foundation, still amazed by how dramatically life had changed since that rainy afternoon when she stopped to help a stranger. The event brought together volunteers, educators, nonprofit leaders, local families, and business owners from across the city, all gathered to recognize individuals whose actions had strengthened the community through kindness, service, and compassion. And although Sarah believed she was simply attending as a guest, she soon discovered that William had something entirely different planned. As the program progressed, stories were shared about ordinary people making extraordinary differences in the lives of others, and Sarah listened with admiration, never imagining that her own story would soon become part of the presentation. Then William stepped onto the stage, greeted by enthusiastic applause, and after thanking the audience for their support of the foundation's mission, he began recounting the story of a rainy afternoon when an exhausted single mother stopped to help an elderly man whom she had never met before, choosing kindness over convenience and compassion over indifference. Immediately, Sarah realized what was happening, and her heart raced as hundreds of people listened attentively to the account of a simple act that had created unexpected consequences far beyond either person's expectations. William spoke not about wealth, status, or success, but about character, explaining that genuine integrity revealed itself through choices made when there was no audience and no promise of reward. And he shared how deeply Sarah's actions had affected him, reminding him that the values he had spent decades promoting still existed in everyday people quietly serving their families and communities. Then, to Sarah's complete surprise, he invited her onto the stage. And as she walked forward through a standing ovation from the audience, she felt overwhelmed by emotion. Not because of the attention itself, but because she understood that the recognition represented something much larger than her own story. William presented her with a Community Leadership Award and announced the launch of a new outreach initiative that would connect struggling families with educational resources, volunteer networks, and mentorship opportunities, explaining that Sarah would serve as a community ambassador for the program because her compassion, humility, and ability to connect with people made her uniquely qualified for the role. The audience responded with another wave of applause, and Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing, realizing that the opportunity would allow her to help countless families facing challenges similar to those she had experienced herself. Afterward, as families approached to congratulate her and share their own stories, she recognized that the true reward was not the award or the title, but the chance to create positive change in the lives of others, just as William's foundation had done for so many years. Later that evening, standing outside beneath a clear sky with Ethan and Lily at her side, She reflected on everything that had happened since the storm, understanding that one small decision had altered the course of her future in ways she never could have predicted. Ethan proudly held the program booklet, while Lily carried a bouquet of flowers given to her by volunteers, and seeing their happiness filled Sarah with gratitude and hope. William joined them briefly before departing, reminding her that communities become stronger whenever ordinary people choose kindness. And as Sarah watched him leave, she smiled, knowing that the greatest lesson from the entire experience was simple yet powerful. Every act of compassion has the potential to travel farther than we can see, changing lives, opening doors, and creating opportunities that last far beyond a single moment in the rain.